Welcome to the latest edition of our AT Kearney Procurement and Analytics Solutions, The Wave of the Future podcast series. I'm Helen Clegg, and I'm joined today by Rosanna Yang, a director with our AT Kearney's Procurement and Analytics Solutions practice based in Chicago, Tom Derry, CEO of ISM, the Institute for Supply Management, based in Arizona, and David Noble, Group Chief Executive of CIPS, the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply, based in Stamford, UK. Welcome, Rosanna, Tom, and David to the podcast. Today's podcast is about the brand new ROSMA Performance Check, recently launched by AT Kearney, ISM and CIPS. I'd therefore like to start with a definition for our audience. Rosanna, what is the ROSMA Performance Check and why has it been developed?
Sure. The ROSMA Performance Check is a short benchmarking assessment that helps companies measure the efficiency and effectiveness of their procurement organization in delivering financial contributions to the business. Now, we've partnered with CIPS and ISM to provide it to procurement organizations around the globe to help the procurement profession. We wanted to offer an ongoing benchmarking service to organizations around the world where everyone can use the same standard metric to evaluate their performance and gain comparison insights. Now, this assessment uses a standard framework called ROSMA that gives insight into value creation in a language that we have found really resonates with C-level executives. One convenient feature about this is that you get immediate feedback. So immediately upon completing an assessment, participants will receive a feedback report with the ROSMA score and insights to help increase efficiency and effectiveness in delivering financial benefits. Now, we, along with CIPS and ISM, are providing access to this service to organizations around the globe complimentary, so everyone can use the same standard framework for comparison.
Now, Rosanna, I believe that ROSMA stands for Return on Supply Management Assets. Can you explain a little more about the ROSMA framework and how the performance check fits into it?
Absolutely, Helen. And you're correct. ROSMA does stand for Return on Supply Management Assets. Now, it's similar to an ROI for procurement. We developed it with leading CPOs and CFOs using proven financial concepts such as EVA, economic value added, and the DuPont method. ROSMA is simply financial benefits earned from procurement activities divided by total cost of procurement assets. That's the basic definition, but there are also 7 drivers of procurement performance excellence built into the formula. It measures hard, tangible results delivered from activities and investments of the procurement team. Now, we think ROSMA can be a powerful financial component to an overall balanced scorecard for procurement. And so you asked me, how does the performance check relate to ROSMA? Well, the performance check uses the ROSMA framework to provide insights and to provide a ROSMA score for comparison.
David, I'd like to bring you in here and ask you why procurement organizations need to demonstrate their value to their companies. Surely CFOs know the value that procurement organizations bring.
You might assume that, but our members routinely express the difficulty they have in moving beyond anecdotal evidence of results to quantitative ones. It's the holy grail of the profession to be able to demonstrate bottom line value to a operation that exists within. And I know this myself. We have our own purchasing department at CIPS, and I find it very hard, ironically, to find a P&L impact from the function. So anything that gives value to that and shows it in the balance sheet or the P&L, then of course that's advantageous to the profession, particularly now as procurement is becoming more and more seen as a value driver to the core business. This has come a long way from procurement being seen as a back office tactical function, which it certainly was when I started my career, and leading companies more and more recognizing that it is critical to increasing top line growth to get your procurement strategically placed and effective. Particularly in an environment where companies are being squeezed from all sides, it becomes more and more a differentiator to success. So we obviously view procurement as a strategic business unit and want to give companies the tools to demonstrate that. And the Institute itself has many different tools, but the ROSMA Performance Check in particular is a standard measure that all organizations can use to point to outstanding performance and areas requiring additional investment. Financial officers, financial directors have many pressures. Growing revenue while decreasing costs is probably top of the mind for many. And there are many ways to evaluate performance, but the profession needs a global, standardized method of doing so. And ROSMA does that as a financial ratio that CFOs particularly can be familiar with. So I think it's got a real role to play in that area.
Rosanna, I want to come back to you and ask you what the drivers are that form the ROSMA framework. Can you tell us about the 7 drivers, please?
Sure. Just quickly, the 7 drivers are 1, spend coverage, 2, velocity, 3, category yields, 4, compliance, 5, additional benefits, 6, period costs, and 7, structural investments.
And can you elaborate on just 2 of these 7 key drivers, Rosanna?
Sure, absolutely. So the 2 we get asked about the most are probably spend coverage and velocity. So let me cover spend coverage. So this is really addressing the total third-party spend that procurement influences, along with considerations for the visibility and the governance of that spend. So you think about it as, is procurement sourcing and helping with contracting and helping with category and supplier management activities? Does procurement have the visibility over the spend and a mandate to work on the spend and is really affecting that spend? So those are some of the things that we would think about in spend coverage. Now, velocity is really evaluating the speed of addressing the spend under procurement influence. So you may want to think about it as, how much are you actively sourcing? Things like what's the optimal frequency, what's the cycle time of addressing the spend, or things that you think about when you look at velocity.
Tom, I want to talk about the actual performance check and completing it. Once a company completes the ROSMA performance check and learns that they need to improve on one or more of these drivers that Rosanna's just talked about, what are some of the next steps that they have to do?
Well, after completing the survey, they have the option, if they choose, to follow up with any one of the 3 organizations to help them learn more about ROSMA and how to make changes with the insights that they gain from that feedback report. Now, all 3 of us, ISM and Kearney and CIPS, have decades of experience and expertise in helping organizations identify opportunities to improve their performance in all of these areas covered by the ROSMA formula. And we were in a position to provide tailored training or other knowledge, tools and templates to help organizations focus on those areas they deem are important to improving their overall performance.
Now, David, I want to come back to you and ask you about benchmarking. Within the procurement profession, is benchmarking an important way of measuring success?
Absolutely. This profession is to continually evolve and move forwards. We must ensure our community are benchmarking and having a competitive edge. My old chief exec, when I was supply director, would often ask me to prove how good my department's people and processes and performance were. That's very difficult when you haven't got an independent way of checking that. It's only as good internally as what it's felt to be. It's not when there's no comparator outside, you just don't know. So it's essential to have performance benchmarking data. Certainly the Institute itself, we have a process benchmarking and performance benchmarking that are separate tools that are very, very successful around the world because of what I've just said. I think the ROSMA Performance Check particularly will help in this area because, as we said earlier, it's very much analytical driven. The performance check starts you in the right direction towards understanding the impact of your activities on financial results, which is, of course, core to the role of procurement. Across each of the 7 drivers that Rosanna listed, the feedback report measures your performance against the leaders and followers, which is absolutely key to benchmarking understanding. This is a way that we will not only drive better performance with organizations, but also within the profession as a whole. So benchmarking is powerful, there's no question of that. The survey that we've talked about today can be taken by a firm or by different divisions to compare performance, and it can be taken every year to evaluate trends, which is almost as important. It's continuous, and that's why benchmarking itself as a tool can be so powerful.
Tom, I'd like to ask you another question, which is why should procurement organizations take the ROSMA performance check? What are some of the key benefits for them?
Well, this is really about telling the story of how procurement makes a contribution to the strategic performance of the firm, something that we believe we're not as adept in telling as we need to be as a profession, and we therefore kind of undersell ourselves in terms of the strategic performance we actually are delivering on behalf of our companies. More specifically, ROSMA is a repeatable and universal measure that highlights the procurement organization's performance on a worldwide basis. And by the way, it's applicable to both public and private sector organizations. Secondly, it enables everyone to understand the value that the procurement function brings, which raises the credibility internally of the procurement organization overall. Another important benefit is that it highlights the improvement areas, which enables leaders to have discussions around those opportunities to raise performance. And importantly, it tracks performance over time. So we can tell where we've started, and we can see what we can measure and quantify how we've improved over time, and also in relation to the benchmarks against leaders and followers in our industry. So it's improvement in performance within ourselves and also relative to our competition. Finally, it highlights the opportunity to develop talent, where the procurement organization may need to develop or improve its talent in order to deliver the expected performance.
And Tom, just one more question on the ROSMA Performance Check. How long does it take to actually complete the performance check itself? And is it open to individuals? And for those who participate, what do they actually get?
Well, it typically takes about 40 minutes to complete the questionnaire. It may take a little time to gather the data that's necessary to complete the questionnaire in addition to that. And it's directly available both from the CIPS and ISM websites. There's a link to the portal where the assessment can be completed. It really is an appropriate tool for the business unit or the division or the entire procurement organization. It's not intended to be a metric that applies to the individual professional. But participants, as has been mentioned, receive a customized feedback report that assesses their performance, compares it to their industry, and highlights the improvement opportunities that exist, as well as providing the overall ROSMA score. And then, of course, they have the option, if they choose, to follow up with ISM or AT Kearney or with CIPS to identify specifically how they might target areas for performance improvement and what that effort might entail.
And Rosanna, as we come to the end of this podcast, can you demonstrate through a couple of examples how companies have used their ROSMA score and insights provided to them to improve their procurement performance?
Sure. So through our ROSMA efforts over the last few years, we've led organizations to transform the way they think about value creation in the procurement function. Now, one example is through our work for a global engineering and infrastructure company. And we conducted a ROSMA assessment for all of their divisions. We benchmarked all divisions against their industry peers to assess procurement's current performance. Workshops with their procurement heads revealed a number of top improvement levers with cross-divisional relevance. Now, based on the ROSMA benchmarking, specific improvement recommendations were developed and executed. So that's one example. Another example is with a large technology company. Now, this company introduced ROSMA to help measure and benchmark procurement performance, and that really resonated well with finance. ROSMA allowed a transparent scenario planning at the group level. The goal was to harmonize ROSMA scoring and lift it beyond current highest levels. In this situation, they also used ROSMA through a PPM tool, a procurement performance management online tool that served as a steering instrument for them. Now, the PPM online tool provided visibility into project pipeline, as well as it helped the team achieve better results overall. Now, all in all, we've provided ROSMA scores, deep dive analysis to hundreds of firms in numerous industries, geographies, and levels of sophistication. Now, we've often heard that ROSMA has led to valuable discussions within a company, increased investment in procurement, and greater insights into areas for greater improvement.
So to summarize, ROSMA is a short benchmarking assessment that helps companies measure the efficiency and effectiveness of their procurement organizations in delivering financial contributions to the business. It only takes about 40 minutes to complete and is available on the CIPS and ISM websites. Companies that complete the ROSMA Performance Check can have a follow-up with AT Kearney, ISM or CIPS to help them learn more about ROSMA if they so wish. On that note, I'd like to thank Rosanna Yang, Tom Derry and David Noble for being my guests today. I'd also like to thank our production engineer, Tom Klein. Thank you for listening to this edition of The Wave of the Future. If you have any comments on this podcast or have a suggestion for a podcast topic, please share your thoughts via Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @ATKPAS. This has been an AT Kearney Procurement and Analytics Solutions podcast production. Join us again soon for our next Wave of the Future podcast.